Enrico Fermi, Exploring the Abundance and Annihilation on the Atomic Frontier,
by Arav Bhandari
and Suryan Jain. The production of nuclear energy, the most abundant energy in the universe. The annihilation of a city with one bomb blast. The treatment and cure of different cancers. One man's research covers all these regions of the atomic frontier.
He was nicknamed the Pope of Physics and the architect of the atomic bomb. He lived at the same time as Albert Einstein. His name is Enrico Fermi. Enrico Fermi was an Italian physicist and a Nobel laureate known for his groundbreaking research in the field of nuclear physics. A critical day in history that will always be associated with Fermi is December 2nd, 1942, when a group led by him built the world's first nuclear reactor. This was a part of the Manhattan Project, which laid the foundation for harnessing nuclear energy for both constructive and destructive purposes. Fermi's success with the controlled chain reaction was what allowed all the events that followed.
Now let's take a step back to September 29th, 1901, when Enrico Fermi was born in Rome, the youngest of three siblings. Fermi was sent to a public school and was an average student. At the age of 14, his elder brother, Giulio, died from minor surgery. That left him heartbroken. His parents encouraged him to focus on his education to distract him and help him cope. His father's colleague observed the brightness in Fermi and lent him advanced textbooks in math and physics that encouraged him to explore the subjects and excel in them. He studied it at various schools and universities and received his first doctorate in 1922. Afterward, he married a Jewish girl, Laura Capon, who was also a physicist and daughter of an admiral in the Italian Navy in 1928. He then immersed himself in research in a building on the street Via Ponteperna, with many other colleagues that continued to do research with him at different times and places at international universities. Fermi returned to Italy, which had started to become the center of nuclear physics. Since he wanted to start to discover new properties of the atom, the neutron crusher had come to Rome at the same time. It was a machine that started a nuclear reaction and released neutrons at the reader, which detected the numbers of neutrons that hit. 2 years later, in 1938, Fermi's work on slowing down neutrons with wax shielding and creating new radioactive elements earned him a Nobel Prize.
Den fulltaliga publiken. När alla så lyckligt intagit sina platser spelade konsertföreningens orkester. Sedan prissången ur mästersångarna spelats var det så professor Players tur att haranglomet och checken. Kungen skakade hjärtligt hand med professor Fermi, yttrade några vänliga ord och hela publiken applåderade.
Fermi grew increasingly uncomfortable with the fascist politics of his homeland. Benito Mussolini was a Hitler-like dictator in Italy. He even embraced the anti-Semitic politics of its ally, Nazi Germany. Fermi's wife, Laura, was Jewish. Winning the 1938 Nobel Prize for Physics serendipitously supplied the excuse for Fermi's family to journey abroad. The prize money permitted them to establish themselves in the United States. After a long journey, on January 2nd, 1939, Fermi arrived in New York. He was immediately approached and started discussions with U.S. government officials about the possibility of atomic energy for war purposes. He was brought into the Manhattan Project, which led to his work on nuclear chain reaction being moved to Chicago, where he finally settled in 1942. The Manhattan Project needed to construct the Chicago Pile 1 for testing how a chain reaction could be controllable. Chicago Pile 1 was the first self-sustaining nuclear reactor. Fermi designed this pioneering technology. The initial plan was to create this atomic reactor inside of a building far away from other structures or people, but this never came about. So Fermi requested to create the atomic reactor under the squash courts at Stackfield in the University of Chicago. To create this nuclear reactor, Fermi's team needed to take thousands of pounds of lead, graphite, and uranium-235 and then cut them into bricks. This took a very long time to complete, and there were above 770,000 pounds of bricks. The team piled these bricks in an oval shape, employing wooden pillars to keep them steadfast. This approach took 18 days, and there were a total of 57 layers. Before this event, no one had known how to create a self-sustaining nuclear reactor that could be powered on and off. Fermi solved this problem by utilizing cadmium rods. Cadmium rods would absorb the neutrons, starting and stopping the nuclear reaction. The reactor was very successful, and they celebrated secretly. At this point, the war was starting to pick up, and many countries had declared war on Germany. The Manhattan Project was underway, and Los Alamos, the city, was wrapped around trying to create the first nuclear bomb, and different labs were working on different goals for the same greater interest. At this time, nuclear energy had the sole intent of creating a bomb. Enrico Fermi had to go undercover. In August 1944, he joined Los Alamos, the New Mexico site where the Manhattan Project took place, which was concerned with the engineering of atomic bombs. The project took about 3 years, but a lot of that time was spent debating if the bomb should be dropped or not. Fermi worked on the Chicago Pile 2, the second nuclear reactor that was supposed to create more energy. The atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6, 1945, which led to the end of the Second World War. Not everybody in Los Alamos felt like they were in the mood to celebrate. Many scientists felt lots of guilt for the amount of destruction they had caused. Throughout his life, Enrico Fermi had numerous late accomplishments, such as the development of the nuclear power plant with the Atomic Energy Commission. The nuclear chain reaction was his most momentous accomplishment, as it helps the planet today. Nuclear energy provides about 10% of the world's electricity from about 440 nuclear reactors. Nuclear is the world's second largest source of low-carbon power, 28% of the total in 2019. Over 50 countries utilize nuclear energy in about 220 research reactors. In addition to research, these reactors are used for the production of medical and industrial isotopes, as well as for training.
The Argonne National Laboratory is associated with Fermi frequently because Fermi's lab was turned into a national laboratory and named the Argonne Laboratory. Today, his lab is and has been working on creating a new kind of reactor dubbed a fast reactor, which will not generate as much waste since 1950. This is just another example of Fermi's lasting impact. Nuclear radiation is also used in many other fields like medicine, academics, scientific applications, industrial uses, etc. Hospitals and radiology centers perform approximately 10 million nuclear medicine procedures in the United States each year. Now, every time you turn the lights on in your house or go for an X-ray, you will think about Fermi and his work.